Hello, everyone. So happy Friday again. I love Fridays, as you all know, and I repeat this over and over and over again. So today, I'm actually just going to make sure that I have my phone, as usual, on Do Not Disturb, because I don't really need to hear my voice, right? So today, I'm actually sharing the last three tips on how to actually have and create a beautiful, gorgeous website. Now, all of these tips are pretty much visually design related. Of course, there's like so many other tips that I could share related to tech, related to copywriting, related to so many other things. But this series here, this is number 4, the last one, is actually only focused on a visually pleasing. Now, things that make your pages and overall your website visually pleasing. So let me know if you're joining me. Let me know where you're joining me from. I do have my comments on here, so let's see who's with us today. And anyway, so I'm super happy that I've reached the end of the series, because at first I thought, oh my gosh, 12 tips is a lot to share in only one Facebook Live. So I decided to split it in 4, because I think it's like small bites. It's definitely easier and better. So let's start today with the first one, which is actually tip number 10. Okay, so I have Sharon joining me today. Hello, Sharon. And I have Licia. Hi, Licia from Canada. Oh my gosh, how are you? This is so good. And Maggie from Seattle. Okay, how are you over there? Hope all is well. Hope we're all doing good. I know that we're going through so much right now, but I'm trying to keep positive. You know, this is who I am. I do try to see the positive in everything. So I also see Melissa from Colorado. Thank you for joining me, Melissa. Thank you for joining me today. So like I was saying, I'm super happy. This is the last part of my 4-part series on tips to get a gorgeous, gorgeous website. Now, this is for non-designers. You don't have to be a designer. This is actually more of a mindset thing. I think a lot of people think that they can't design, they can't make anything pretty, but that's not true. If you do get dressed in the morning and you don't look like, I don't know, maybe like a clown with, like orange pants and pink shirts. Or if you've ever, like I actually like to say, if you've ever decorated your house or moved furniture around, you could definitely do this. The tips are very simple, and you can follow them. And again, it's always about trying. If you do believe that you can't do it, you're really not going to do it. So you have to believe in yourself and just follow the tips. And again, keep doing it, because it will get better. So I see more people joining us. Maggie, hi Maggie. And Kira, hi Kira. Oh, it's okay. She says she won't be able to stay long. It's fine. It's okay, Kira. You can always watch the replay if you want to. So I'm glad you guys are all joining me. So let's go through them. There's 3 tips. They're not very complicated. So I'm going to go through tip number 10, which is, again, it's my first tip of the day today. So the first one, and this is very, very important, it's keep things in view. Okay, so maybe we'll think, oh, what does she mean by keep things in view? Okay, so do you know how sometimes there's like all of these carousels and sliders that rotate, or like tabs and accordions? I mean, accordions are usually used for like FAQs, which is fine. Those are okay. But when I say keep things in view, I mean, avoid using carousels, avoid using rotating sliders. So like if you have a big slider on the top of your page, or even in the middle, or even on other pages, it doesn't have to be your home page, don't make it a rotating slider. And I'll tell you why. They're very popular. They were extremely popular a few years ago. I myself designed a few of them with those. Clients love them, people love them, but the main issue is that your audience actually doesn't get to see them all. So you have to understand that people that are visiting your website, they're not there to read a book, if you know what I mean. They're there to get quick information. They're there to find things quickly. They don't really have a lot of time. And if they find it hard, or if they find it hard to find the information they're looking for, they're just going to jump and go somewhere else. So you definitely want to make sure that that they stick around. So if you hide things behind carousels and sliders and tabs, that actually requires them to either, if it's a carousel, for example, so like a rotating I don't know, if you have 3 or 4 images or even pictures that you want to show, they're not going to sit there and wait for them. I mean, very rarely people are actually going to sit there and wait to see all of them. So they're probably going to miss the last 2 or 3 of them. So your message is not going to go through. Same thing with tabs. Tabs is commonly used on e-commerce sites, mostly to when people are actually looking for that information. So for example, description, specifications of a product, that's okay, because this is actually people that are digging in. So they're going to find the information because that's what they're looking for. But you definitely don't want your main information on your homepage or your services page or your about page. You definitely don't want that on tabs. Or again, I'm going to keep saying the carousel thing and the rotating sliders. I mean, I've seen this even on some big names websites. I have seen it where they tell their story in slides, so you actually have to click on an arrow to keep reading. Believe me, that's not good, because people don't actually do it. I've actually missed it because I couldn't tell there was something that I had to click on to keep reading more. I just thought, maybe this is it, and just kept rolling, scrolling down. So this is definitely something that you want to avoid. So avoid that at all costs if you can. The next one, this leads me actually to my next tip. It's tip number 11, number 2 on this video, but number 11, it's simplicity. So I like to say, like, Marie Kondo that site. So if you're familiar with Marie Kondo, which my daughter and I, we love watching it, it's keep things simple, or get rid of things that are irrelevant. So once you write everything that you want on your website, or once everything is built, or once you're planning, go through it one more time. Get rid of what's just completely irrelevant. Are you being redundant? Sometimes we are redundant on information. That happens a lot. Again, I want to make sure, after I said this, I thought about something. This is important too. The only time you want to be redundant, or the only time you actually want to repeat, is on your call to action. And that I talked about in another video, but I'm going to bring that back into this one. So your call to action, meaning like what you're telling your audience to do, you might want to repeat that maybe 2 or 3 times, depending on how long your page is. Okay, so that's the only time you want to be redundant. You don't want to be redundant with stories or pictures or images over and over again. You definitely don't want to do that. Long paragraphs, too many words to explain something that could be simple. Too many links on your navigation. So these things, you want to definitely make everything very simple as possible, because it's simple to navigate and people are going to love it, let me tell you, because they're going to find the information easier. They're not going to have to keep clicking around to find things. So you might, if you want to get a little bit more in-depth information on simplicity, you can go back to tips. I have it here. Tips number 1, 2, 7, and 8. The first part of this video, and then video number 3 of this series, I talk about paragraphs and navigation. So basically this is my very important tips. Keep it simple. The last one, and it's one that I always talk about, I think everywhere and every time, is consistency. Okay, so you want to keep everything consistent. So when we talk about consistency, a lot of people think, okay, but I mean, you mean like, oh yeah, the same colors, my color palette, my font combinations. Yeah, those are the simple ones. So for example, you definitely want to keep using the same fonts you always use. You don't want to move around and change fonts every time, so because you're not keeping your brand consistent. Same thing with the colors. You definitely don't want to keep using different colors every time. You want to stick to your palette. But those are like the more obvious ones. But consistency always also means spacing between your elements on your page. So for example, if you're using 20 pixel padding around your images, make sure you do that every time. If you're using let's say another idea here. If you have items, for example, if you have like list items, and you decide that you want to use like, specific little bullet points, like maybe an image bullet point or just bullet points, whatever that is, keep it consistent. So if you use bullet points, always use bullet points, unless of course you have, sometimes I use it bullet points and sometimes I use check marks. That's fine, but again, stick with those. Don't keep going like all over the place, and every time you every time you do something, you do it differently. So just keep that in mind. Keep the word consistency in mind, because every time you do something new on your page, whatever that is, every time you create something new or you put together a new page, you might want to go back and see what you did. So usually, this is actually my last tip, but I want to tell you, I have a bonus one, but I'm going to talk about this one later. But usually what you do is you write those things down. So I like to call it like a design system. It might sound very pro, but it's not really. You're just pretty much writing it down, just like you write down your color palettes, just like you write down the font you're using. You might want to write these things down, because what happens is, for example, if you sit down and you put together your 3-page website or your 4-page website, and you have everything fresh in your mind, you do everything at once, that's fine. But then, maybe a month later, or I don't know, maybe a week later or 6 months later, you decide you want to add another page, or you want to add something else, or you want to include something else. Then you forgot all of that stuff that you did, and you actually end up wasting time going back to figure out what you did before. So you definitely want to write these things down. So special things like definitely paddings and margins, size of fonts, that's also super important. I see this a lot where people use different sizes of fonts in different pages of their website, and that's not consistent. So to make it look professional, consistency is the key everywhere. So I had 12 tips. I have 3 here, but I had 12 tips overall. But this is the most important one, the consistency. This is why I left it for to be the last one. But I do have a bonus. I have a bonus because it's something I thought about, and I did go through a couple of websites a couple of weeks ago. I did a free website review for I offered it to my list, and some of you did join me on that. And a very important thing that I saw was, if you have a personal brand, this is completely not related to consistency, but if you have a personal brand, especially, avoid using stock photos of people. And this is especially if you do have a personal brand. And I say this because, I don't know, if your brand is Little Pink Blue, whatever that is, and then you want to use pictures of people, that's fine. But if the brand is your brand, has your name on it, don't use pictures of other people. Unless these pictures, these images are like of their hand or of their back, or make sure that their face is not is not like a big part of the image. That's important. I wanted to bring this in. This is almost like a 13th tip related to images, but I already talked about images in another video. But I wanted to bring this up because I have seen this a few times. And I think unless you do have products and you have models, for example, wearing your product. So let's say your personal brand you design jewelry, for example, blah, blah, okay. For example, and then you have models wearing your jewelry, that's fine. That's okay. That's your product. But if you have pictures on your website to, just a filler picture, or, try to use either images that have no people or pictures of yourself. Now, with images of no people, you could do that with stock images. That's fine, of course. And I do have a link to a whole bunch of like a collection of images depending on your style, and you'd have to kind of go through my quiz to get that link. So if you've been through the quiz and if you've been through my emails, you'll definitely find that link to images depending on your style, free stock images that you can use. So that's it for today, guys. Let me see if you have any questions. No questions today. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being here with me today. This is awesome. I'm super, super happy to be able to finish this series because I did start it in December, but this is it. And I hope you do get a lot from these tips. If this is the first one you're watching, go back and watch the number 1, 2, and 3, because they do have some really, really awesome tips as well. So if you have any questions and you're watching the replay, let me know in the comments, ask anything in the comments, and I'll make sure I'll answer it. Okay? So have an awesome rest of, for me it's Friday. I don't know if you're watching on the other side of the world, but for me it's Friday. So have an awesome weekend, and I hope you're all very safe and keep smiling. All right, guys? Thank you so much. Have an awesome weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.